Okay, so today what we're going to talk about is a new research paper that has come out that I think is very important. It's called The Effect of Coherent Breathing on Mental Health and Well-Being, a randomized placebo-controlled trial. And this is the first author is Guy Fincham, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to study what they called coherent breathing at 5 breaths a minute. So looking at breathing at 5.5 breaths a minute, or a matched control at 12 breaths a minute. So essentially looking at 5.5 breaths a minute to 12 breaths a minute for approximately 10 minutes per day over 4 weeks. The coherent breathing, they're essentially trying to look at the research that is looking at, slowed breath, slowing down your breath quite a bit down to 5.5 or less than 6. Some studies have shown that there's sort of increased brain synchrony when you get to that 6 breaths or less per minute. And so they wanted to see, could we actually see some changes between these two groups, 10 minutes a day for 4 weeks. All right. So already, if you've been with me and listened to me for a while, you might be going, oh, A, is 10 minutes enough? B, is 4 weeks enough? And when would you expect to see something? When would you expect? Would you expect to see it after 2 days, after a week? If you would expect to see something. So they picked 4 weeks. And so they found some very interesting things. And that's what I wanted to talk about. We've talked about, the reason I bring this up is that we've talked about a number of breathing practices. And there's no specific one that's sort of like, oh, you've got to do this one, right? There's so many breathing practices out there. It's like paying attention to your breath, slowing down your breath, alternate nostril breathing, pranayama breathing, ujjayi breath, right? There's Wim Hof, there's holotropic breath. There's a number of breath practices out there. And if we were to make a recommendation, there would be some recommendations that we would give, mostly based on what I notice from the imbalance of the nervous system in most people, is that we're mostly stressed, and then when we're stressed, we're breathing quite rapidly. And so my recommendation, although there's never like one size fits all, but if I had a recommendation, the recommendation would be to slow your breath down and breathe through your nose. Those are kind of if you can, slow your breath down, breathe through your nose, and take deeper breaths. Fairly decent. All those have been shown to kind of shift that balance from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. And so what they did is they wanted to compare this 5.5, which is slow, but not slowest. We've looked at studies that have looked at 2.5 breaths a minute, right? The box breathing that goes 6 in, hold 6, down 6, exhale 6, hold 6, inhale 6, hold 6, exhale 6, hold 6. All right, we've looked at 2.5 breaths a minute. And so just reading a little bit of this background of, wow, these practices have been along for a while, and some of the comments that I made previously of the research on the breath is really going to explode. And we know that it has both physiologic and psychological factors in it. And so finding some breath work practice that works for you, that you can implement, that you can do, that works for you. There's so many different, different practices, and really it's about finding the one that you resonate with. Okay. So this is their background. So I'm just going to read it. Background: breath work may be defined as deliberate control of breath rhythm and pattern, usually with the aim of increasing focus and relaxation, or with the aim of influencing emotional, mental, and physical health. Since ancient times, myriad forms of breath work have emerged independently around the globe via teachings by shamans, martial artists, tribal and religious leaders, including medieval Orthodox Russian Christian monks, Hawaiian kahunas, Buddhist meditators, Indian yogis, and Chinese Qigong practitioners. The emergence of such techniques from various cultures and traditions all around the world have roots going back approximately 10,000 years. And perhaps the most well-known body of practices are derived from pranayama, one of the classical limbs of yoga, which began receiving global scientific examination nearly 60 years ago. Right? Fast forward to the present, and breathwork has transformed and extended its reach to use and teachings by modern-day psychedelic groups, medical professionals, including myself, elite performers, military, along with practitioners of health and wellness more broadly. Public interest in breathwork has exploded due to its therapeutic potential, but it is essential such excitement is grounded in a robust evidence-based. Totally agree. Right? I think we have enough evidence-based to see what breathing can do. Now it's trying to pick out, the specifics of the breathing, or finding out what it does. How does it help? And then again, all the questions of, if you think of any treatment program or any medication that you take, right? Dosing, timing, duration, all those sorts of things. Well, what's the dose, right? Well, this dose was 10 minutes a day, 4 weeks. And then we measured, right? So then I go on to read. So they look at what they call coherent breathing practices, which are 5 to 6 breaths per minute, no deliberate pauses. These are widely found in religions and cultures around the world, and has been researched in scientific practice. This is what they call coherent. For whatever reason, they want to call this coherent breathing. So what they wanted to do is essentially study 5.5 breaths per minute to 12 breaths per minute with equal inhale and exhale ratios. So 12 breaths per minute is the lower bound of average resting respiration rate in adults. So for some reason, they picked the lower bound of resting respiration, for whatever reason that might be. So just kind of like, taking that in. What their hypothesis was that the coherent breathing, the 5.5 breaths per minute, would lead to a greater reduction in stress. So their primary endpoint was stress, and then they were looking at a few other secondary endpoints, including anxiety, depression, well-being, and sleep disturbance. Here's the intervention. So the intervention group was trained to breathe 5.5 breaths per minute with equal inhale and exhale duration of 5.5 seconds. So you had a 5.5 seconds in and then a 5.5 seconds out with no breath holds. Participants were asked, pre-recorded and guided by a trained breathwork facilitator. Participants were asked to practice their randomly allocated breathwork session daily for 4 weeks, approximately 10 minutes per day for 28 days. The other group was asked to do, they called this the attention placebo group, at 12 breaths per minute with equal inhale and exhale durations of 2.5 seconds each. So 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 in, 2.5 out, right? Where the other one is 5.5, 5.5 in, 5.5 out, 2.5 in, 2.5 out. So you might be thinking, you might be having questions already like, oh, is that enough? Is that enough of a difference? Well, let's see. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a difference to me. The group that got so 2 seconds in, 2.5 seconds out, recorded by the same breathwork facilitator. So they really tried to keep this as close to each other as possible, right? Same facilitator, same sound, same background music, same everything, except for one was instructed to do 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, and then the other one was instructed to do 2.5 seconds in and 2.5 seconds out. The other thing is each group, okay, so at the start of the breathwork sessions, now I'm just going to read this and you tell me if you would expect just this, could this have some effect on your physiology and maybe psychological well-being? At the start of the breathwork sessions, to get participants ready for the paced breathing, they were instructed to sit up straight or lie down in a quiet place with no disturbances. Their eyes were closed or gazed lowered. Right, that kind of sounds similar to a lot of the instructions we give. With headphones on, they were then instructed to soften their face, neck, and shoulder muscles and take 2 deep breaths into the abdomen and diaphragm and let each one go with a sigh. So that would be okay. Softening the whole body in order to control for as much variation as possible among participants' respiration patterns and styles throughout the paced breathing. They were instructed to breathe softly and gently through the nose. So that's an interesting one. And abdominally or diaphragmatically in a balanced, rhythmic way. So whether you're doing the 2.5 in and 2.5 out, or the 5.5 in and the 5.5 out, you were asked to sit up straight or lie down in a quiet place with no disturbances. Close your eyes or have a soft downward gaze with headphones on because they were listening to a pre-recorded facilitator. They were instructed to soften their face, neck, and shoulder muscles, take 2 deep breaths in to the abdomen and diaphragm, and let each one go with a sigh, softening their whole body. They were then instructed to breathe softly and gently through their nose and abdominally or diaphragmatically in a balanced, rhythmic way. So that would be sort of like diaphragmatic or abdominal breathing, right? So you're breathing in through your nose, and then you're extending your abdomen, and then you're bringing your abdomen down, or diaphragm, whichever way you want to look at it. Okay. So they're both groups are implementing this sort of relaxation technique, right? This is over 10 minutes, right? Relaxation technique. They're lying down or they're sitting up. Their eyes are closed, soft downward or a soft downward gaze. Take 2 deep breaths, exhale with a sigh. And then breathe with your abdomen softly and gently. How many people wouldn't think that that might have an effect just in and of itself? Could actually have a pretty strong effect. All right. If you did that for 10 minutes. Here's the absolute cool part of any of this. And if you go to the paper yourself, which was recently published, Effect of Coherent Breathing on Mental Health and Well-Being, a randomized placebo-controlled study. This was just accepted December 6, 2023. And it was published December 13th, 2023. So like we're, pretty recent stuff here. Okay. Whether you were in the whether you were in the what they call the coherent breathing group or this other breathing group, okay, what they found is that just doing this intervention from baseline, stress was reduced, anxiety was reduced, depression was reduced, and well-being was increased. So to me, that's pretty profound in terms of, if we had this looks almost like a 30% reduction in depression. Again, maybe a 30 or 25% reduction in anxiety, 30% reduction in stress,